We were just talking a moment ago about that assisted dying legislation, one of the most important decisions MPs will ever have to make, and they have made it. They passed the legislation, but it's now being tangled up in the House of Lords.
Well, of course, supporters did pass it in the Commons, but as Sophie said, it's been held up. Alex Norris was speaking to us earlier about it.
We think it's an important debate. We think it's an important, matter that needs to come to its fruition one way or the other, which is why we've provided the parliamentary space for that to happen. I voted for it in the Commons. That's my view. I was after extensive engagement with constituents, a lot of personal reflection. I think the peers need to do their job. I would hope that they would use that as a process of revising and improving, as the Lords is meant to, rather than trying to artificially stop it.
We were already starting our conversation there with Lord Falconer, as you can see. Great to have you with us.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
What's going on in the Lords and what are you trying to do?
As you said earlier on, the bill passed the Commons with a clear majority of 23. It's come to the Lords. It's been in the Lords since June. It's had 7 days in committee. That's about 35 or 40 hours of committee, which you debate line by line. And the Lords haven't yet finished the study of Clause 1, and there are 60 clauses in the bill. The majority of Lords, even the opponents, are keen it be properly scrutinised. But the thing about the Lords is there's nobody to say stop talking, so you can go on talking as long as you like. That's why we haven't got to beyond Clause 1, and it's lost in this procedural thicket. And if it goes on like that, it's never going to get out by the end of April, which is the date it's got to get out by in order to become law.
Now you're obviously someone who wants to see this legislation passed. We can kind of talk about the rights and wrongs of it later, but just to be clear, you are thinking about using a kind of parliamentary mechanism to try and push it through.
It's not for me to use it. If what happens is the Commons pass a bill, it goes to the Lords and they reject it, that's the Lords reject it. If in the next parliamentary session the Commons are willing to pass it again in the same form, then the way our constitution works, in order to give primacy to the elected representatives, then they can force it through. But
this is the 1911 Parliamentary Act, and the reason that this is a little bit controversial, though, is it's usually used for government business, right? And this is not government business. The government's standing back from this, it's saying, like, this is too important. So it would be kind of unprecedented.
It would be unprecedented, but the essence of the Parliament Act is that in order to give the Commons primacy over the Lords, because we're not elected, we're all appointed for a whole variety of reasons, whereas the Commons are elected by the public. If anybody is to decide whether or not what you described as this really important change is to take place, surely it shouldn't be a minority of Lords blocking it. It should be a decision made by the elected representatives.
So the other kind of surely that maybe people would throw out is surely for something so important, it should have been pledged by either of any of the parties as a manifesto pledge, and it should be carried through with the full weight of government behind it. We were discussing this earlier. I think it's extraordinary for the Lords to frustrate something so overtly intentionally going forward. That said, is it different to had it been something that came with a clearer mandate from the people than I guess this lacks?
Well, the reason it's not in a manifesto is because it's a conscience issue, and there's been conscience issues right throughout our history where no party will agree in their manifesto because their own parties are all divided by it. But our issues of conscience, like, for example, should you legalise or decriminalise homosexuality? Should you legalise abortion? These are issues that no political party will ever put into its manifesto because the parties are divided. Instead, we leave it to the elected representatives to make a decision. So I don't think the fact that it's not in a manifesto is an indication. I think our system depends upon the elected representatives. 100 years ago, the Lords dominated everything, and that's why the Parliament Act was introduced. And in a sense, the way the Lords have evolved is they've become a group of people who will scrutinise legislation, but they won't reject it. And it's particularly important in this area because I think most people would agree on the basis of rectal polling that the idea of an assisted dying law is something that has pretty considerable public support. Sorry.
I completely understand your point about the conscience issue, right? It has to be within people's hearts and their own consciences.
And it divides parties.
Exactly. But the other examples you give, right, so abortion or homosexuality, you make the decision and then it's quite easy to implement it. The difficulty, I guess, with assisted dying is that it needs a whole raft of organisational change, of different checks and balances. You need the NHS, you need the Ministry of Justice. I mean, this is complicated stuff.
And we've been supported...
Is there not a bit of a... I guess that's what people in the Lords would say. They're like, look, you know, it's not just us ticking this through. This is a mess. We need to go through it.
It's not a mess. Yes, you need institutional support like the Ministry of Justice, like the Department of Health, but myself and the sponsor of the bill in the Commons, Kim Leadbeater, we've had enormous institutional support. The fact that the government has been neutral does not mean that government officials have not been working with us closely to make sure it's workable. And I, as a government minister, you'll remember about 400 years ago I was a government minister. As a government minister, I took quite a large number of bills through the Parliament, and the support we've had, Kim and I have had in relation to this bill, is as good, if not better. So there's nothing we haven't had that a minister would have. And you're absolutely right, Sophie, when you say that means we've got to talk to the Health Department and the Justice Department about the nuts and bolts of it. But we've had that.
Can I just ask a final question, which is, you know, again, I don't think anything justifies overt blocking by the Lords of the elected Commons. That said, is there a moment of this where you look at your government and regret that they didn't actually pursue more clear-cut reform of the Lords, which was in the manifesto and hasn't really materialised?
Well, I mean, on one view, going through what I'm going through at the moment, maybe, but no, because my experience of the Lords is their whole USP, their unique selling point is they get down and look at the detail of bill and make changes. They're just not doing that here, or the minority are stopping them doing that here, because, as I say, we haven't even got past Clause 1 yet.
We're out of time. It's been really interesting to talk. Hopefully get you on again very soon, Lord Falconer.
Thank you for having me.
Great to see you.